The Galactic Council chamber stood as a testament to power and grandeur, a sprawling dome of polished obsidian and crystalline windows that framed the endless expanse of stars. Here, decisions that shaped the fate of civilizations were made, but today, the Council's focus turned to a single representative, a human diplomat standing alone among the assembled titans of the galaxy. Ambassador Elias Vaughn adjusted his simple navy suit, the fabric a stark contrast to the ceremonial robes and armors that adorned the alien dignitaries. In one hand, he carried a modest leather briefcase. His face, calm but unreadable, betrayed no reaction to the sea of hostile stares directed at him. At the heart of the chamber sat High King Thrazik of the Krell Dominion, his presence as commanding as his hulking, plated form. His 6 crimson eyes fixed on Vaughn with a predatory glint as he leaned back on his throne-like seat, framed by advisors and guards bristling with advanced weaponry. "Humans," Thrazik began, his guttural voice resonating like the grind of steel. "Your species' weapons are relics of a bygone era. Projectile firearms? Combustion-based tools? You cling to these primitive artifacts as though they're worth presenting here." The chamber erupted with laughter. Representatives from the Zillian technocracy, the Altari Coalition, and countless other interstellar powers exchanged smug glances and mocking nods. Vaughn stood silent, unmoving. "Why have you even come?" Thrazik continued, spreading his massive claws. "To showcase your obsolescence? Perhaps you hoped we would pity you and grant your species some leniency in the face of progress." The laughter swelled, filling the room with a palpable derision. Vaughn's expression remained neutral, his gaze steady as he scanned the assembly. The jeers, the ridicule. It was nothing new. Humanity had been subjected to this treatment since the day they emerged on the galactic stage, dismissed as a backwater race with outdated technology. When the laughter subsided, Vaughn took a single step forward. The chamber grew quiet, anticipation hanging thick in the air. He spoke, his voice calm, yet carrying a weight that silenced even the murmurs of the crowd. "High King Thrazik," Vaughn began, his words precise, "and esteemed members of the Galactic Council. Humanity has heard these words before: primitive, obsolete, weak. We are familiar with your disdain." His tone did not rise, but the weight of his words carried through the chamber like a thunderclap. "What you fail to understand," Vaughn continued, placing the briefcase gently on the polished floor, "is that simplicity does not equate to ineffectiveness. The tools we wield, tools you so readily dismiss, are crafted with purpose. They are not adorned with unnecessary complexity or fragile pride. They are made to endure, to overcome, to prevail." Thrazik let out a snort, leaning forward. "Pretty words, human. But words do not win wars. Technology does." A ripple of approval spread among the council. Vaughn responded with the faintest hint of a smile, bending down to open the briefcase. The simple act drew murmurs of curiosity, and a few representatives craned their necks to catch a glimpse. From within, Vaughn pulled a compact but unmistakable device, a flamethrower. The reactions were immediate. Some council members recoiled in confusion, others smirked in condescension. Thrazik, however, broke into a deep, rumbling laugh. "This," he bellowed, pointing a clawed finger at the weapon, "this is your grand rebuttal? A tool for starting campfires? You insult this council with your theatrics." The chamber once again filled with laughter, louder this time, but Vaughn did not flinch. He stood holding the flamethrower as though it were a scepter, his gaze unwavering as the mockery swirled around him. When the laughter finally died, Vaughn took a slow step forward. "This is not a rebuttal," he said softly. "It is a lesson." His words carried a gravity that silenced even Thrazik. The chamber grew still, the laughter replaced by a nervous tension. Vaughn's eyes swept the room, meeting the gaze of each representative as he continued. You see tools built for chaos and destruction, he said. We see tools built for survival, for triumph, for a galaxy that doesn't tolerate weakness, real or perceived. Thrazic's smirk faltered. And what exactly are you trying to teach us, human? Vaughn's lips curved into a faint, enigmatic smile. That you should be careful what you mock. One day, it might consume you. The chamber fell silent, the weight of his words lingering in the air like a storm on the horizon. Vaughn returned the flamethrower to his briefcase and snapped it shut, the click of the locks punctuating the silence. Humanity does not come to beg, Vaughn said, his voice firm. We come to warn. The quiet in the chamber felt heavier than the loudest jeers. Vaughn stepped back, his presence no longer that of a lone figure in a hostile room, but of a force demanding recognition. The council watched him, some with suspicion, others with unease. As Vaughn stood motionless, the stage was set, and the spark of what was to come flickered faintly in the eyes of those who dared to doubt him. The Galactic Council chamber was no stranger to heated debates, but the atmosphere had never felt this volatile. The tension hung thick in the air as Ambassador Vaughn's flamethrower demonstration lingered in the minds of every representative. High King Thrazic's claws tapped impatiently against the polished table before him, his fiery gaze locked on Vaughn. This charade has gone on long enough, Thrazic growled, his voice sharp and guttural. Do you expect us to cower before your crude display? We are not impressed by fire. Human. Vaughn, standing with his briefcase closed once again, appeared unfazed. He stepped forward, his deliberate movements capturing the attention of every being in the chamber. I never sought to impress you, your majesty, he replied evenly. I sought to demonstrate something far more valuable, something your arrogance prevents you from seeing. The remark cut through the room like a blade, eliciting murmurs from the assembled representatives. Thrazic's mandibles clicked in irritation. You dare speak of arrogance when your weapon belongs in the annals of pre-industrial history. Your technology is a relic, and your presence here is an insult to this council. Vaughn's calm demeanor remained unshaken. A relic, perhaps, but a functional one. Function outweighs form, as history often proves. He turned his gaze to the other council members, his tone gaining an edge of urgency. How many of you, I wonder, have faced an enemy that values survival above all else, that adapts, endures, and prevails without the luxury of excess? The question hung in the air, unanswered. A few representatives exchanged uneasy glances. For all their advanced technology and sophisticated tactics, the Council's member species rarely faced existential threats. Vaughn's words carried an unsettling implication. Humanity's survival was born of necessity, not privilege. Seeking to regain control of the room, Thrazic slammed his clawed fist onto the table, the sound echoing through the chamber. Enough of this, he roared. You will not lecture us on warfare, human. You and your primitive species have no place here. Vaughn met Thrazic's glare without flinching. Slowly, he reached into his briefcase and retrieved the flamethrower once more. The sight of the weapon reignited a murmur of unease among the council members. He held it aloft, his voice calm but commanding. This device, Vaughn said, is not just a weapon. It is a symbol, a reminder of humanity's willingness to fight with what we have, to adapt when outmatched, and to win despite the odds. His eyes locked onto Thrazic. And it is precisely that willingness that makes us dangerous. The king sneered, his mandibles flaring. Your rhetoric grows tiresome. Burn another dummy if you must. Show us your barbaric display again. Perhaps we'll award you a pat on the back before sending you home to your backwater planet. Vaughn's grip on the flamethrower tightened. His expression darkened, the faintest flicker of emotion breaking through his otherwise calm demeanor. A dummy? He repeated softly. No. This time, I think a more fitting demonstration is in order. Before anyone could react, Vaughn turned toward Thrazik and activated the Flamethrower. A torrent of fire erupted, engulfing the towering Krell leader in a searing blaze. The chamber descended into chaos. Representatives screamed, some leaping from their seats, while others froze in shock. The flames roared for only seconds, but the aftermath was unforgettable. Thrazik's imposing form crumpled, his once mighty presence reduced to smoldering ruin. The smell of scorched flesh filled the air, silencing even the most vocal critics in the chamber. Guards surged forward, weapons drawn, but Vaughn raised the flamethrower, its nozzle still glowing faintly. "Stay where you are," he ordered, his voice cold as steel. The guards hesitated, their instincts tempered by the diplomat's calm yet menacing stance. "I warned you," Vaughn said, addressing the council as a whole. "I warned you to take humanity seriously. But mockery and derision were your only responses." He gestured to the smoking remains of Thrazik. "This is what happens when arrogance blinds you to the realities of war." The council chamber was deathly silent, save for the faint hum of cooling metal. Vaughn lowered the flamethrower and stepped back, his measured movements a stark contrast to the chaos he had unleashed. "This is not an act of war," Vaughn continued, his voice softer but no less resolute. "This is a lesson, one that your High King refused to learn in words. Let his fate serve as a warning to all who would dismiss humanity as weak or primitive." He looked out over the gathered representatives, his gaze hard and unyielding. "Humanity does not seek conflict. But if conflict finds us, we will fight with everything we have, and we will not lose." The weight of his declaration settled over the room like a storm cloud. No one spoke. No one moved. Vaughn stepped back to his position at the center of the chamber, flamethrower in hand, and waited. The silence was deafening, the room heavy with unspoken tension. Yet beneath the stillness lay an undeniable truth. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted, and humanity stood at its fulcrum. The silence in the Galactic Council chamber was oppressive, punctuated only by the faint hiss of cooling embers from the charred remains of High King Thrazik. Eyes from every corner of the galaxy were fixed on Ambassador Elias Vaughn, a lone figure standing amid the ruins of decorum. For a long moment, no one spoke. The weight of the act, of incinerating a galactic monarch in a single, decisive blaze, hung over the room like a storm cloud. Then, a voice shattered the stillness. "You have doomed your species, human." The speaker was Arliss Veth, the silver-scaled representative of the Zillian technocracy. Her serpentine features twisted in a mix of horror and fury. "This is not diplomacy. This is barbarism." Vaughn turned to face her, his expression calm but steely. "Barbarism," he echoed. "Perhaps. But barbarism is what this council respects. Your laws, your treaties. They are thin veils over a galaxy ruled by strength and fear. Today, humanity has shown we will not be cowed by either." The chamber erupted into a cacophony of voices. Some representatives shouted for Vaughn's arrest, their outrage boiling over. Others, stunned by the display, whispered amongst themselves, their tones tinged with fear. Amid the uproar, Vaughn stood unmoving, his flamethrower still at his side. A booming voice rose above the chaos. "Order!" It was Chancellor Velcrin of the Altari Coalition, his violet robes billowing as he stood. His 4 eyes burned with intensity as he surveyed the room. "This council will maintain order." The chamber quieted, though the tension remained palpable. Velcrin turned his gaze to Vaughn, his tone measured but firm. "Ambassador, you have committed an act that cannot be undone. High King Thrazik was a tyrant, but he was also a member of this council. Explain yourself and tread carefully." Vaughn nodded, stepping forward with slow deliberation. "I understand the gravity of what has transpired," he began. "But let us not pretend that Thrazik's death was unprovoked. He mocked humanity, belittled our weapons, and dismissed our warnings. He invited this response, not through words alone, but through the threat his arrogance posed to the stability of his council and the galaxy itself. He turned to address the room, his voice rising with quiet authority. For centuries, humanity has endured your scorn. We were seen as primitive, as backward, yet in your condescension, you failed to see our resilience. Today, that oversight has been corrected. His words hung in the air, met with a mix of silence and murmured agreement. Representatives exchanged uncertain glances, their earlier confidence shaken. Vaughn's presence was no longer that of a diplomat, but of a harbinger, a man who had shown that humanity's limits were far beyond what the galaxy had assumed. Velcrin leaned forward, his gaze piercing. "And what, Ambassador, do you propose we do with this correction? Do you believe the Council will allow such actions to stand unchallenged?" Vaughn met his gaze unflinchingly. "I believe the Council must decide what matters more, upholding an illusion of invulnerability or acknowledging the reality that humanity is a power you cannot afford to underestimate." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "I do not seek war. Humanity does not seek war. But if this Council chooses to retaliate, you will find we are far more prepared than you imagine. We have no fleets of warships or armies of machines, but we have ingenuity, adaptability, and the will to survive. That, I promise, is more than enough." The room fell silent once more. The representatives of the Galactic Council were creatures of logic and strategy, and Vaughn's words carried an uncomfortable truth. Thrazik's death was brutal, but it was also a demonstration of resolve, a warning that humanity, though smaller and less advanced, could not be dismissed without consequence. It was Chancellor Velcrin who finally broke the silence. "The Council will deliberate," he said, his voice measured. "Ambassador Vaughn, you will return to your station under guard until a decision is reached." Vaughn inclined his head, a faint smile playing at his lips. "As you wish, Chancellor. But remember this moment. It will define the future of this galaxy." Guards approached cautiously, their weapons drawn but their movements hesitant. Vaughn surrendered the flamethrower without resistance, his expression calm. As he was escorted from the chamber, the eyes of every representative followed him. In the days that followed, the Council deliberated, their debates fierce and unyielding. Some called for war, while others argued for diplomacy. But as humanity's history and actions were scrutinized, a sobering realization spread. Humanity's simplicity masked a deadly ingenuity, one the galaxy could not afford to provoke. When the Council reconvened, the verdict was clear. Humanity would not be punished, but would instead be invited into the Council as full members, their strength recognized and their warnings heeded. Elias Vaughn returned to Earth triumphant, his gambit a success. Though his methods were controversial, they had secured humanity's place in the galaxy. For the first time, humanity was not dismissed as primitive or weak. And in the shadows of the Council chamber, where the smell of scorched metal lingered, the galaxy's rulers whispered among themselves, their laughter replaced by a wary respect. Humanity had not just survived. They had made the galaxy understand. To mock them was to invite fire.